40 American Armenians made a historic trip to the land of their forefathers in the summer of 1967. This was the first time since the tragic events of the First World War that the Turkish government permitted such a group to make a pilgrimage. Most of the travelers were American-born, but a few are returning to the land of their birth, to Harpert, to Aintab, to Bitlis, to Van, to the once great and prosperous cities of historical Armenia. The gateway to Turkey is Istanbul, formerly Constantinople. It has served as the capital of the Byzantines as well as of the Sultans. Of special note in Istanbul is the Dolmabahce Palace, the former home of Ottoman sultans. Balyan, the famous Armenian architect of the 19th century, designed this beautiful building along the banks of the picturesque Bosporus. The Armenian genius for design and construction is apparent here, as it is in the great cathedrals of historical Armenia. The arch is borrowed from traditional Armenian design. The gold Arabic lettering is the seal of the Ottoman sultans. The Armenian community of Turkey is concentrated in Istanbul. Its population numbers upwards of 60,000. It is said there are almost 50 Armenian Gregorian churches in the city. Driving through the streets of Istanbul, one catches an occasional fleeting glimpse of an Armenian building. The Armenians have lived in the former Ottoman capital for centuries. In earlier times, Byzantine emperors of Armenian origin ruled a vast empire from here. Across the Bosporus, on the Asiatic side of the city, known as Scutari, an Armenian cemetery still remains intact. At the turn of the century, 40,000 Armenians lived in Scutari. The cemetery is particularly famous because of the important Armenians who have been laid to rest here. Among them, Bedros Turian, the 19th century poet. The prelate, Bedros Kerkorisian. The educator, Retios Berberian. Intellectuals such as Mezburian, poets such as Beşiktaşlian, and many others. One of the principal charitable institutions of Istanbul is the Surp Pergiç Hospital. However, most of the patients here are Turks. Gulbenkian, the oil magnate of Portugal, erected a chapel on this site, also built one of the hospital wings. Armenian landmarks and names, however, are rapidly vanishing. The narrow Bosporus Straits dominates the life of Istanbul. The scenic passageway between the Black Sea and the Sea of Marmara has been a coveted strategic prize for world powers. Hotels, villas, and cafes line the 16-mile length of the straits. In such pleasant settings, the Armenian-American travelers reflect on the unique adventure that lies ahead. The journey through historical Armenia leads by air from Istanbul to Ankara, then by bus to Adana, to Aintab, Harpert, Bitlis, the island of Akhtamar, Van, Kars, and finally to Ani and to Soviet Armenia. Ankara is the capital of Turkey. From this isolated city on the western Anatolian plateau, the modern-day pilgrims embark by bus on what promises to be a high point in their life's experience. There is an air of expectation. Was it a dream that we would soon set foot on the very soil where Armenian forefathers lived, fought, and died? From Ankara, we will move in a general southeasterly direction. The landscape is barren and desolate. Western Turkey is an area of dry lake beds and isolated bodies of salt water. In this unfavorable environment, the first Ottoman Turks fashioned their art of warfare and conquest. Their fierce power eventually overran the historical homeland of the Armenians. For 3 centuries, during the Crusades, the Armenians maintained flourishing kingdoms in Cilicia. The Ruthenian kingdom of Lesser Armenia was situated along the curved northeasterly shores of the Mediterranean. It was finally destroyed by the Muslims in the latter part of the 14th century. Adana, the principal city of Cilicia, is one of the major cities of Turkey. In 1909, it was the scene of a brutal massacre. Over 30,000 Armenians perished. The travelers thought of themselves as a searching party, seeking the remains of a lost nation. Excitement increased with each rumor of a former Armenian building. Some say this was formerly an Armenian church. Was it really Armenian? Was it later converted into a Turkish mosque? Information is so scarce. Some begin to wonder if the Armenians really did live and suffer in this area. Where are we? What crusaders built this fort commanding the valley below? How did the local Armenians help them? How many daughters were given in marriage to crusader knights? The Armenians of the Cilician kingdoms enabled the crusaders to establish and maintain a foothold in the Near East for 2 centuries.